It's a new year. 2023 is here. Putting on my list of minis. Newsies and let's cheers. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about the past. Time to get on the Not Your Average Joe podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Not Your Average Joel. So today we are talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart, something that I love to do. But before I tell everybody what this topic is about, I want to reintroduce all of my guests here on this episode. They've all been here before, so it's just that's why I call it a reintroduction. It's just been a little while since I've done some recordings due to being off for the holidays and just enjoying time with the family. And in case if you are listening to this instead of watching this, I want to make sure that y'all, you recognize each person's voice when they talk. So I thought I would just go ahead and reintroduce everybody. So I first want to welcome Donna back to the podcast. Donna is somebody that's been on here before. She's been on here a couple of times, and I've had great conversations with her. And I remember the last time she was on here, she was talking about like wanting to finish her semester with all A's because she was going to school full time. And I think I actually saw that you did accomplish that, didn't you?
I did. I did. That one class that I was really worried about, I barely made an A, but I made an A. I made a 90.66. So I was excited.
Oh wow, you were barely hanging on, but you did it.
Yep. But I did it.
Yeah, nice. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Is this your last semester coming up or okay,
It
I
is. It's
thought,
my last semester of undergrad, and right now I'm working on applying to graduate schools. So
oh, exciting. So I know you
yeah.
got a lot of thinking to do, a lot of, planning out there. So definitely
Oh yeah.
excited for you.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. So I next want to reintroduce Tony to my podcast. He's been on here a few times as well. We've talked about, different topics, some more serious than others, but we've had some really good conversations and I'm glad to have him back here. So welcome back.
Hello, hello. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so that is Tony. And then the last person I want to reintroduce is DeAnna. It's been a little bit since I've seen her because I know she has been doing some fun adventures herself, which we're actually going to be talking about here in a very little bit. So welcome back, DeAnna. It's good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me back and for such a fun topic. I'm so excited for it.
Yes, absolutely. So, I might as well not have all you viewers waiting, getting longer. I might as well go and tell y'all what this topic is about. So, today's topic is on traveling. So, traveling, as most of y'all know, if you're watching this and if you see my background, I have pictures, from places that I've been to all around, whether it's all around the world or all around just, the nation in general. So, I love to travel. And it's been something that like it was the travel bug kind of bit me a few years ago, probably around 4 or 5 years ago, and I haven't stopped ever since. So, and I'm actually wearing a shirt from Ireland, which I went to last year. So loved Ireland, which that's where I met Deanna actually. I'm sure mentioned that in past podcasts before, but that's where I met Deanna, and it's probably still my favorite country to this day that I've been to. So we're going to talk about all of the, fun side of traveling, maybe some of the stressful parts of traveling and, different forms of traveling. And when I say that, I mean like, whether you've flown on an airplane before or not, or, road trips or, anything like that. So, the first thing that comes to mind, I want to talk about something that I have never done that I'm curious if any of y'all have done. So I've actually never been on a cruise before, and I've always contemplated whether I wanted to go on a cruise or not. I hear good things about it, but then I also hear some things about it that like makes me not want to do it too. So I'm just curious, have any of y'all ever been on a cruise and how was your experience?
I've been on a
I've
cruise.
I have.
I
Yeah.
have not.
Okay, so uh who's going first?
Go ahead, Tony. You take it away.
Okay, so I've actually been on two cruises. One whenever I was I guess like second or third grade, and another one whenever I was like it was like right after my first year in college. Um, so the things I remember about the first one is it was kind of different because, being a kid, like there's a whole like separate section for kids and there's like kid activities and they have like movies every night and all this kid stuff. So if you have kids, like you can like put them in their own little place and not worry about them as much. So that's I guess a benefit depending on the cruise you go on. Whenever I went as an adult, um, so I mean, let's see, I don't know where to start. I think it cruised down to the Bahamas, and the way that it's set up is that they have a bunch of like kind of default excursions you can go on, and you can get more, but you have to be careful because some excursions are not like legit. And uh I think it's because my parents were going, they got really big onto like going onto cruises because once you go on one, they'll try to get you to go on another one at like a discounted rate and they keep you going and then like you're going like every couple of months. And that's how like you can save the most money, but it's also how you're spending more money. So because you just keep on going on more. But so the Bahamas cruise, um like let's see, we went on one excursion where we were swimming with sharks. That was kind of fun. I mean, in a scary way. Um, and like um, so like that's kind of its own thing. And then you have to like you'll stop at a port and then like you'll actually go to the actual excursion. Like it was kind of a drive actually, but like they get you together on like a tour bus or something. I mean, it's kind of different for every cruise, but when we were swimming with sharks, it was like they told us that we were going to that they were going to feed some sharks and then we were going to get in there and swim above them. But what actually happened was we got in there after they had lured them with bait and then didn't feed them. So we were kind of also looking like bait, swimming above the bait. And then like as they start circling up closer towards you, they were like, "Okay, time to go." And they wouldn't answer my mom whenever she asked if anybody had ever died on one of those tours. So, you know, we're still here.
Interesting.
Uh, but so that's one that was most memorable. I remember when I went on when I was really little, we got to swim with stingrays, but I wasn't really a good swimmer at the time, and I didn't enjoy that as much. But let's see. The cruise itself, with the cruise ship, I mean, it's kind of like staying at a fancy hotel. Um, like they'll like at least the ones that I went to, I think they were always Royal Caribbean. You have like a food bar area that you can kind of just go to whenever and get like whatever food you want. Um, and I mean, like, it's room service daily. It's nice. They've got a bunch of different pools on there. If alcohol is your thing, which for me it's not, they have like lounges and stuff like that. And they have stuff for like basically just all different age groups. Um, you can go on to more curated and specific cruises too. So, um, like if you just wanted to go on something for, people in like the college setting, I think like that'd be more like Carnival cruises. Those are more the party cruises. Um, and then of course they have Disney cruises, which is still kind of all ages. I mean, let's be real, Disney adults. Um, and let's see, yeah, I think each of them was about a week. And like from my experience, both of them like they try to shove in as many places you can stop like on the way leg of your trip, and then they like speed like in a straight line back. And so the ship can kind of go faster, and it kind of made me a little bit seasick. But other than that, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I'd like to kind of go again at some point. Cruises have just been kind of a little bit difficult to navigate in the last couple of years, needless to say. Um, and yeah. The only other thing I'd have to say is that the ideal time to go is never the summer. You can go just as easily in mid to late fall, like October or even November, if you're going for a summery warm cruise. Because in the Caribbean or near the equator, it's still gonna be just as warm as it was in the summer, if not, yeah, just maybe slightly cooler, but not really. Um, and then if you want to go on like a more wintry cruise, like if you want to go to like Alaska or somewhere in the EU, then you should you could go like more in the summertime, just off season because it's always busy, it's always packed, and you're always gonna be fighting for something anyway. So make it easier on yourself, and you could probably also save money that way, which is always my concern.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like, from your experience, it makes me kind of want to go on a cruise, definitely, because just wanted to, like there's something for everybody of all ages, and like there's different destinations that you can go to as well. So it sounds very interesting, sounds intriguing.
Yeah, so I'll jump in. It's nice because we kind of have like a diversified experience. So I've done one cruise before and it's been Norwegian. What I will say is I like the cruise, but when you're stopping in your ports, it's almost like the travel, like even quicker than the traveling that we've done, Joel, with EF before. Like you're there for a day, not even like you port in the morning, you wake up, you're out there, you're doing your excursion, and then you're back to the boat. So like when I like to travel, I really like to know the culture of the places I'm going. So as quickly as like other tour groups and other places I've been, at least you have a couple days to really be able to see what that city, what that place is offering, to see what the vibes of it are. And I just felt like I was constantly like there were so many wonderful excursions I wanted to do, and then I only got a choice of one, and then we had to be on the boat moving to the next. So our cruise went to Belize, Mexico. Absolutely beautiful. The cruise was beautiful itself. The food was cruise food. I will say I'm Italian, so take that with a grain of salt. We always think that we know our food. So that's what I will say with it. It was a fun time, adventurous time. But what I will say is I like the ambiguity of being able to make sure that I actually know a culture in a city when I'm traveling. So that was my only like hit or downfall of it. What I will say is if you're interested in cruising, like now's the time to go, or I should say anytime nowadays is the time to go. Like Tony said, they're having really good deals. And like once you repeat and you start getting in with a cruise line, you're going to get those good deals, especially if you're into like slot machines, gambling. When you have players cards, they offer you a lot of deals. My family's gotten like when they're with a certain casino, they've gotten offers for free cruises because they know how they play on board, which is interesting. There's always shows at night which keep you entertained, but I had the same experience as Tony, where they stop a lot at ports on the way out, and then coming in is when they more of like rush you back. I never had like seasickness or anything like that, but I have traveled with people who have had that. So like having Dramamine, or they even have like these sticker patches you could put behind your ear to help you with like balance and things like that is super important, especially if you haven't like gone on any boats before. I would say try and go on something more locally. It is a big cruise ship, so you're not going to feel as much of the rocking as you would on a smaller ship. But like keep in mind that you are like putting yourself through this forever, whatever amount of days you sign up for. Like they have cruises as short as 3 days, but they also have them as long as like 15 days. Will I say I will ever go on a cruise again? If I were to, it would probably be the Alaska or the Antarctica cruise. But other than that, I don't know how much I would be willing to do in terms of the islands, unless it was like a cruise line that was staying longer in the areas you docked or you ported in.
Okay. Yeah, that's something to think about. Like even like you were talking about sickness, I started thinking about how like I get car sickness pretty easily, and I know a boat is, different than a car, of course, but it's like different transportations. Like I feel like Like on a plane, I feel like I'm fine, but like I still take a Dramamine just in case. So I do wonder. I probably, if I ever were to go on a cruise, I might want to take that Dramamine just in case because I don't want to be sick, on a boat for, a week or whatever.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Donna, would you ever go on a cruise?
I would. I would. Me and my friends have actually talked about doing one this summer, but I'm not so sure yet. It's not set in stone. But I've always wanted to go in with my mom. Like we've talked about going to like Cancun or the Bahamas or somewhere like that. I always thought it would be fun. I'm bad about like looking them up and being like, yeah, I'm gonna book it, and then I don't. So for
Yeah.
whatever reason.
Yeah, yeah. I would if I were, wanted to go on a cruise, I probably would want to go in the same area, like Mexico or, Belize or Bahamas, somewhere where it's that really nice clear blue water. I think that would
Mhm.
be a good time for sure.
Yeah, the one we went to whenever I was little, we went to Cozumel, and I was just kind of like astonished, but just like you could just see all the way to the bottom, how clear it was. And it's like, wow, this is really cool. It's like, okay, go out there, enjoy that, and then back in the boat. Didn't get to see any of the rest of Cozumel. It was just like, oh,
Yep.
okay. But I mean, there were a lot of other things to see. We also went through like the Florida Keys and a bunch of other areas. It's just you're packing in a lot. So it's kind of like if you're thinking about it in terms of other travel trips, I mean, it's kind of like it's a sampler because you are going to spend the most time on this luxury boat. Um, and that's where the main kind of attraction is, which is I think why Disney cruises are so popular because it's like, well, I'm going all these other places and a bit of Disney at the same time. It's the boat is the kind of the primary attraction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would probably be the cruise I would want to go on as a Disney cruise, just because I feel like I'm a kid at heart when it comes to Disney. Like anything with Lion King or Aladdin or something like that, like, sign me up, basically. You get to experience Disney and you get to see some amazing and beautiful places too. So, so yeah, that was one thing that I, was as always I've always contemplated on whether I want to do or not. And after hearing both of your experiences, I think I may want to go at least one time, just to say I've done it once. And even if I do love it, I'll go more. But if not, then that one time was it. So maybe one day I'll get to go. So now I want to talk about something that I have done. And I know both Donna and Deanna have been on a plane before. Tony, you've been on a plane before, haven't you?
Yes, multiple times.
Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to make sure before I move on to the airplane question. So, there's one thing that I always struggle with. I think of pros and cons with this situation, but I want to get all of your opinions on this. So, when it comes to choosing a seat on the plane, do you like to get the window seat or the aisle seat, or do you get the middle seat? What is something that y'all think? Or what is a seat that like y'all prefer, is what I meant. And
So,
I'll start with you, Deanna.
sorry, didn't mean to jump in there. I was going to say I am an aisle seat person all the way. I love like being able to stretch out my legs, like being able to run to the restroom if I need to, like having that autonomy being there is really nice. But I'm also a person who will not pay for that seat. So it's not always that I get it, but I notice if you check in at the right time and you ask them kindly and you're nice to the person who's checking you in, like if you actually physically go up to the desk, they're like very flexible and they're very accommodating for that. Unless it's a very budgetary airline, then they're going to place you wherever they need to place you, which is understandable as well.
hmm Yeah, most definitely. I can see why you want the aisle seat. I definitely agree with those points for sure.
Definitely. And then you can even go into like placement. Like, are you more of a front of the plane person? Are you more of a back of the plane type of person? I used to love the front, like towards the front of the plane, not first class, because I don't usually I'm not splurging, usually unless it's on my company's dime and they're sponsoring for it, then I'm happy to splurge. But if not, if it's me, myself, I'm okay with taking the regular class seat. And in terms of it, I used to like sitting in the front because I have a carry-on very quick. I don't like stop at baggage check or anything. So I'm like on and off the plane in an instant. But there's been a lot of studies recently in terms of planes and different size planes and impacts and landings. And actually, the safest area you could be is more towards the back of the plane. So, like behind the wings and the back of the plane. So, it's really interesting, really something you don't think about unless you fly constantly or you're on that side of TikTok that I'm in. So, I think I'm booking more towards the back of the flight nowadays.
Yeah, same here for me. I think yeah, it is funny to think that there's almost like a strategy when it comes to choosing your seat because there's like, so many pros and cons, with both. Like if you sit at the front of the plane, you may get of course you'll get out first, but if you sit in the back of the plane, like you said, there's those reasonings too. So it is funny how that there's like a strategy and kind of a plan that goes with that, especially if you travel a good bit.
I just like sitting near the bathroom, and the back of the plane usually satiates that. Um, I also prefer to fly Southwest, and they kind of just let you sit wherever, however, there's not really any rules. It's just, well, if it fits, you can sit here. So, um, I like, I would prefer the window seat, but I have traveled with other people who sometimes take precedence, and I'm like, okay, sure, you can have the window seat. I'm not going to fight over it 'cause I'm probably going to have to get up and go to the bathroom at some point. So it's, I'll take whatever. I've done all the different seats really. So
Mhm. Yeah, so what do you think, Donna? Where would you
Uh,
choose?
well, on smaller flights, I usually like to do like a window seat just because on a smaller plane, like a shorter flight, I'm not gonna have to get up as much. But if I'm doing like a long flight, I like to sit in the aisle. That way I can get up if I need to and all that stuff. I like to get up and stretch my legs. And I'm definitely gonna be using the back of the plane now instead of more towards the front. So now that I know that fact.
I didn't mean to scare you. It's just I find it interesting. So I watch the videos and then I'm on that side of TikTok. So it is really interesting. But like
Right.
I will put out there the statistics of anything happening are very rare. Like you're more likely to get injured in a car accident than you are in a plane. So I didn't want it to take a turn to
That's
that
true.
route. I apologize.
yeah,
No, you're
the way I see that is like when they have like the seatbelts on, like, come on, it's like, why? I mean, if something bad happens, we're all gonna die anyway, like, not really
Right.
that
Tony, I'm not
worried.
traveling with you on this plane.
Well, I
It's not
mean,
optimistic.
um, that does remind me though, because you said smaller flights, like the bigger flight, like the biggest plane I was ever on was going from Atlanta to Amsterdam, and it was really miserable because like they had like I think there was like three seats on each side, and they had like a middle section which was like 5 or 6 seats, and like sitting in the very middle of it is absolutely like terrible because flying from one climate to another, um like they recommended so that we could reduce our carry-on costs and stuff, that we go ahead and bundle up for what's cold when we got there, because we were going in like, I guess it was about this time of year, but it was like it was going to be a lot colder over there. So it's like, okay, we're already all bundled up, but if you get in the middle of the plane, it's either scorching hot or, really cold. Like the whole plane is going to be cold when you're going over the ocean. But like whenever you are most of the time in the middle, it's just like that's where all the heat is. So like you're just kind of stuck there sweating, and like you're three people in, and there's some guy you don't know watching like a weird movie next to you, and it just, I don't recommend it. If I were on a bigger plane, I would always want to be on the outside from now on.
Yeah, lesson learned, it seems like. There's always a lesson learned out of these situations. I've even learned some lessons out of both of my. I'm going to talk about two different experiences right quick that I've had that are both out of the country experiences. So, the first experience that I had as far as going out of the country was going to Greece. So, I flew from Philadelphia to Athens, Greece. So, I flew out there. I chose the window seat because I was thinking this is like my first time, like being on a plane and going out of the country kind of situation. Or technically, I guess my first flight was from Birmingham to Philly, but from Philly to Athens, that was my first big flight. And I chose the window seat, but then I regretted it right away because I it was a 9-hour flight and I really needed to go like pee at one point. and the person that was sitting in the aisle seat was sleeping like this, and like they had it blocked to where I couldn't even get out. I couldn't even like squeeze in between them. So I was like, I had to hold my pee the whole flight, and I was like, oh, maybe no, there may have been at one point at the very end, I was probably able to finally get up. She maybe like finally woke up, and I was like, excuse me. So that I said, I was thinking, no, I'll never do that again, where I am going to be on the window seat for a long flight, even though I mean I like looking out the window and all that. But another situation I had was coming back from Ireland. I flew from Dublin back to Chicago, and because Chicago was my connecting flight, so I flew to Chicago, and I chose an aisle seat. And I chose an aisle seat at the front of the plane. So I was thinking I want to be like the first one to get off. And I definitely was one of the first to get off, but I had a problem the whole flight, even though it was only like a 7 hour flight back. But the whole time I was thinking I'm gonna try to sleep, this time on this plane because usually I have a hard time sleeping on planes for some reason. So like I feel like I'm usually just like, crazy by the time I get to my destination because of lack of sleep. But I was thinking, no, this time I'm gonna sleep well because I didn't sleep good the night before because I was out with like the group having a good time at the end of the night. And so like I only probably got like 3 hours of sleep and I was all like emotional saying goodbye to everybody. When I don't get much sleep, I get like really emotional. Like I get really sad easily, and especially when we were all saying goodbye to each other. So anyway, I was thinking, no, I'm gonna get some good sleep. So I flew, like I sat in the aisle seat, but the whole time I even tried sleeping. The flight attendant was all like they seem like they never come through with that cart so much. I feel like they came to that cart like constantly on that flight. And they kept like hitting me while I was sleeping. Like I know it was accident, but like I'm trying to sleep like this, and then like they keep like running into my shoulder. It's like, oh my gosh, like I can't sleep with somebody, like constantly like hitting me with their elbow or something like that. And then on top of that, I had a family next to me with a baby, which babies are cute, but not on flights because you can't get because you can't get any sleep. So I had two bad experiences. So I could see how, I could see I would probably still prefer the aisle seat just because, those moments where you do need to go to the restroom, you don't have to feel like you have to climb over somebody. But I guess I've had a bad experience with both. So, so yeah, I guess that's where. Oh, well, then also the middle seat I was going to talk about right quick. The only time I will choose the middle seat is if I'm with family. Like I've done that with, I've gone on trips with like a couple of my brothers, and like, we've flown out to places like, Portland or Seattle or something like that. And I usually end up choosing the middle seat just because I don't think anybody ever wants the middle seat. So I was like, I'll just take one for the team. So that's the only time where I'll take the middle seat in that situation. But
I have a funny middle seat story, I will say. So it was on my first flight, like internationally. So I didn't know any better. Didn't choose a seat. Didn't ask for a seat. Was whatever they assigned me. They assigned me like literally middle of the plane, middle seat row, and I ended up sitting in the middle of a family, candidly. So I had the husband on one side of me, the wife on the other side of me, and then three kids in the back of me. And they were literally like, we both like the aisle seat. So we didn't know if there was going to be a person here or if it just wouldn't be filled. But they adopted me as part of their family. I kid you not. They had snacks, they had everything. Every time they were opening something, they were offering it to me. Knew all the kids, still follow them on Instagram. Wonderful. So I was an
wow.
adopted family member at that point. Pretty
Well,
good
that's sweet.
experience. And the people, yeah, I was going to say, I solo travel a lot. So the people you meet on flights too, if you go into it with an open mind, you'll be so surprised who you meet on these flights. Like I'm still keeping up with somebody who lives in Detroit and is a nurse anesthetist. And like, it's just incredible the cool people you can meet, even if it's like, it's a long flight, yes, but think about it. It's like maybe 10 hours of your life or 8 hours of your life. Super interesting.
Yeah, the flight from Birmingham straight to Dallas, Love Field, on the way there, because it was like again Southwest, you could just kind of sit wherever. Um, it was me and my partner flying together, and I mean, so just two of us on a row of three, and so it was a full flight, so someone had to sit on the third seat. So I was in, of course, the middle because I was just sitting next to him, and then it was like, oh, well, there was this old lady. I think she was like, I don't know, 78 or something. Like she was really up there, and she's like, well, can I sit here? I was like, well, sure, why not? I mean, somebody's got to. And, I had brought stuff to keep myself entertained during the flight. I mean, it wasn't that long. It was like a 2-hour flight, but it was just like, we just kept talking and talking. And I learned so much about her family history and like all these other things about like how her kids like work in other countries and like all this crazy stuff. And she was trying to decide whether or not she should go back and stay living in Texas. And like I ended up getting like one of those Magic 8 Ball apps where you shake it and then it's like, well, signs point to yes, I guess you should stay. And so I guess I helped her with a major life decision. I don't know, but I mean, I didn't keep up with her, so I hope she's doing well right now. But it made the flight interesting and memorable all the
I love that.
Yeah, I do like those stories where you meet somebody on a plane and you kind of keep up with them, like with DeAnna's situation. You get to keep up with those people still. But for me, I've only had like one experience where like I was like really talking to somebody. I think it was that flight from Philly to Athens. Other than the moments where she was sleeping and blocking me from going to the restroom, she was awake at the first, part of the flight. And she was telling me like, "Is this your first time out of the country?" I'm like, "Yes." And then like, we're about to land and she's like, "Oh my gosh, we're here. Like, look at this." And like, "Oh my gosh, we're in Greece." And I remember like we were just like talking to each other and just telling me how excited we both were and what we were looking forward to. So, but I never actually like kept up with her social media, but that was like the only kind of experience I've had as far as anybody because the flight coming back, I remember, I mean, I'm sure the guy spoke English, but like he was watching something in Dutch, so I was thinking like, I'm not sure. I just don't know for sure if like, who all knows English, and especially on an international flight. So I was like, I guess I couldn't really. I guess I could have spoken to him, but I think he slept a good part of the flight too, and I think he was sleeping a good part of the flight as well. So I've only had like one experience where like I actually got to talk to somebody like that. So.
I haven't had any experiences like that. Like most of the time, I always get seated beside people who just they have their headphones in, they're doing their own thing, that kind of thing. The only time I've ever like interacted with people that I've flown with is like when I traveled with my brother. We sat together like the entire time. But that was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can relate to that. Even here recently, like, I feel like ever since COVID, like, I feel like not, people aren't really as talkative now. Like, I could be wrong, but I feel like all the flights that I've been on since
same.
COVID, everybody just kind of keeps to themselves. Like, nobody wants to, really talk to each other, unless it's just, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" Like if you're sitting next to them, that's about all you get. It's kind of like the casual, "Hey, how are you?" Or like enjoy your time in Atlanta or wherever you're flying to. so
Right, right.
so
Now,
there's that.
one of my coworkers, so he doesn't actually work in the main office here in Birmingham. He flies in from Austin, and he was telling me it was like the day that they they removed the mask rule, that everybody was happier, everybody was more talkative, everybody wanted to just, talk and converse again. And it was like everybody was, yay, we don't have to keep our faces to ourselves locked in. Um, that was something because it was it was like a really big issue, like you had to make sure while you're already sitting uncomfortably, they're like, oh, well, I gotta cover my face too, and then like they would like hassle you about it, like, oh, I'm falling asleep, like, hey, wake you up, and be like, you gotta keep your mask on, you know. Um,
Mhm.
You
but
Yeah.
can usually tell when you sit next to a person or like around a person, like there's always something to connect on because you guys are going through a similar experience, right? You're going through a flight. Like there's either an uncomfortable seat or a small tray or this, that, or the other thing. And you can tell if somebody wants to talk and like, you guys have a lot in common, or if somebody just wants to relax, because I've been that person too, where like I'm dying on this flight. I barely got a nice sleep, and I definitely do need this sleep on this flight in order to be a functioning human being. Um, but yeah, you just roll with it in terms of it. Something I am curious though is, have you guys ever traveled with nervous flyers, and or are you a nervous flyer? And do you have like certain things you have to do? Like, for instance, I have a friend who's a very nervous flyer, and she's like, I have to wear this exact outfit, sit in this exact type of seat, so like an aisle type of seat, and then I have to be listening to this song when we take off in order for everything to go well. And when we're about to touch base, I have to hear the wheels pop, or I have to hear this. Like, and it's surprising, but I have a lot of nervous friends who travel, and I didn't realize that. For me, it's just the nervousness of making the plane. Once I sit on the plane, I'm okay. I'm like, okay, we made it. We're getting to where we're going. It's fine. It's just making sure I'm not late, because DeAnna's standard time is 5 to 10 minutes late. So making sure I get there on time is usually the key for me. But they make me nervous when I travel with them. I'm like, this is what is concerning you, or this is what you have to do every time. This is crazy.
I wouldn't say that I'm inherently nervous when getting on a plane, especially the more often that I do it, because I wasn't really getting on planes much before, because so all my family lives in Texas, and typically we would just make the 12 or 13-hour drive, and it was miserable. That I realize now that I can just fly and be there in 2 hours and don't have to plan a whole day around it. But so I will say one bad thing that happened. It was my first time flying in a while, because I was, like I mentioned, I was flying from Atlanta to Amsterdam, because it was on a school trip, and we were going from Mobile to Atlanta, Atlanta to Amsterdam, and then Amsterdam to our actual destination, which was Berlin. And so I was like, okay, cool, international school trip. Well, apparently, I was watching, I was at a boarding school. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but and they had like a TV room that they were playing a movie in the night before, and that movie just happened to be the first Final Destination movie, where they all get in the plane to go on an international school trip, and then the plane blows up in the middle of the sky and they all die. So I was like, oh, I'm about to do that. So don't watch any scary or upsetting media prior to going on a flight. Just, so it's not in the back of your mind. Just, have something else to focus on. But obviously that didn't happen, because I didn't die. And so.
I'm so glad to hear that we're not speaking to your ghost right now.
No, I think it'd be really cool if you did. I would just be like, yeah, I'm just a ghost who does podcasts now. That's what I do. I bought a house so I could haunt it, That'd be cool. That'd be really cool.
That would be a story to tell. I feel like it would take up your entire tombstone too.
like find me haunting at this address, just I'll be there.
And catch me on this podcast.
Yeah, there you go. And have all my social media followings, haunting for hire, even. That'd be cool.
I love it.
We got our own side story going on here.
I like that. So Donna, do you ever get nervous on flights, or have you ever been with somebody that's nervous on a flight?
Well, the first time I ever flew was with my parents, and my mom, she had never flew either. And I don't really remember a whole lot about the flight, but I remember she was really nervous like the entire time. But I don't exactly remember like what she did or how she calmed down, but I just remember she was scared. And she always says she'll never fly again. So I don't know. But I'm not nervous about flying. I'm more nervous about like trying to get to my flight, making sure it's not delayed and that kind of thing, making sure I have everything that I need. And that's what I usually get nervous about. But the flight itself, it's fine. Like I don't get nervous at all. I think the only time I really got kind of nervous was when I was flying from Edinburgh to Chicago, and we were flying over like some of the mountains in Canada, I think. That's what they said anyway. I guess because you can look and see where you're at, like on the map on like the airplane. But anyway, we started having a lot of turbulence at that point, and I got kind of freaked out a little bit there, but it was okay. It only lasted like a couple of minutes, but there was a lot of turbulence in those couple of minutes. So, but that's the only time I've really ever gotten nervous with flying.
Yeah, I could say that I've had a few moments of nervousness. Definitely with my very first flight, I was nervous because I was thinking I've never been on it. I don't know what to expect. And then you hear how fast that they're going, like 500 and something miles per hour. You're thinking, are you gonna feel that? Like, am I gonna feel me going that fast? And then, once you get up there, you realize, oh, like it wasn't so bad after all. But like, I think the first time of like taking off, I was super nervous, just worried about like oh man, what's gonna happen, like as we're going up, like what am I going to feel? Am I gonna feel like the drop going down and up, or am I gonna just feel fine? Like am I just gonna be like, oh, like look, we're going up, so the first time I was very nervous, and then the only other couple times I've been nervous was last year I went to Los Angeles with a friend. We flew from Charlotte, North Carolina to LA, and there was like a tsunami that was happening in California, like in like Northern California, but it was still like affecting like down there in LA.
Mhm.
So, we were close to getting there, and they're saying there's going to be like some turbulence that's going to happen. And I was thinking, oh crap, turbulence. Like, I don't mind the minor turbulence where you feel like a little bump, and it's like, okay, like I'm just imagining like a bump on the road. But when I hear about like, oh, there was a tsunami here in California, and just letting y'all know there may be some strong winds or strong turbulence. So there was a good bit of strong turbulence, and when we landed, my friend was like, I was really concerned. I was like, yep, I was concerned too because I was like, I just kept feeling it the whole time. I would just like close my eyes like this, and thankfully I was in the very back of the plane, so hope maybe not everybody was seeing me like, well, like a nervous wreck, but. The only other thing that does make me nervous is like when they're like, we're about to land, and if I'm sitting in the aisle seat or the middle seat or whatever, and the person that's at the window seat, like they won't put their window up, like they have it down still. And I some reason I always like seeing when we land. Like I like to see how close we are to the ground. And like when I don't know, it's like when is that bump gonna happen? Like, then I start like looking out at other people's like windows. It's like please somebody have their window open so I can see when we're landing. So that's the only other time I think I get nervous, like when it comes to the landing part, just seeing when the landing is, when it happens, because I want to know when that bump happens. I don't want to just out of nowhere, just be sitting there all of a sudden boom, and it's like you hear all that noise where they're trying to slow it down and all that. So, but also, getting on the plane, that kind of leads me to another question. Because both of y'all mentioned about being nervous about getting to the plane on time and, delays and all of that. So, one thing that stresses me out is the TSA, is going through the TSA. Each airport, I feel like does it so differently. I wish they all had the same protocol, but like some of them, like they don't require you to, most of them require you to take off your shoes, but like some of them, like I've asked, like, do I need to take off my belt? They're like, nope, some of them are no, some of them are yes. So I was like, why shouldn't I take off my belt if it has like a metal, piece on it? But some are different. So I was wondering if any of y'all have like a TSA story where like y'all had like maybe made a mistake, put something in your carry-on that you weren't supposed to, something that may have not have made the 311 rule, or do y'all have any kind of like TSA story to share?
So, first off, I'll just say that Birmingham Shuttlesworth Airport has like the chillest like check-in process because it's so small. Like, I'm really, really happy about that because we were really close to having the international airport here instead of in Atlanta. And I'm really glad that we didn't because I can get in there in like 30 minutes and just be waiting for my flight. Like, it's so great. But coming on the way back, um, I had so sometimes traveling can upset your digestive symptoms. I'll say that. And I had bought something for that at the drugstore as soon as I got to Texas, and I hadn't even opened it yet, but it was loperamide, and I guess that because it was too much, like it was above like 4 ounces or whatever, they had to pull my bag aside whenever they were doing everything. They had to like keep it there, and they had to put it in like this thing. It looked like a microwave, I guess, so they could test and see like if it was a bomb or something. Um, but that wasn't annoying. The annoying thing is that they had to do it after, like they had to do it sequentially, and there was this lady right in front of me who had tried to bring a taser on the plane that she hadn't declared, and because of that, it took like an hour, or not an hour, it took like 30 minutes um, of just sitting there, because not only do they have to be like, oh no, you can't do that, they have to bring like two or three other people out. Like one of them has to write a report, and the other one they have to have like a security guard there, and they have to say like, well, here's your options. You can either take this back to this other place, or you can put it back in your main baggage. And then also you have to get the forms to declare it and all this stupid stuff just because she tried to bring it on in her purse. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding. Like, you should really know better. Um, and it was just annoying because like this whole time I'm waiting for them to, I guess, scan my little bottle of medicine, and I have to wait for this lady, and I'm just like sitting there. I mean, we were way ahead because you always come to the airport like 2 hours before just in case, but it was it was nerve-wracking.
Yeah, I can relate to that for sure. But before I tell my story, what about y'all, Deanna and Donna?
So I'll say I've been very fortunate, and I think the reason why is not the best reason. Like I think there's a lot of stereotyping that goes on because they'll ask me questions, and I have blonde hair. I look very American. I look like, oh, she's just an American living her traveling dream. Like she's a tourist. She's doing this, that, and the other thing. So I squeak by, fortunately, a lot of the time. Um, Most of the time I am like I pack a lot of carry-ons candidly, so I know very well like what fits in it, what doesn't, and I try not to buy anything that I think will get me stopped. But I've traveled a lot with a friend who looks very European, who looks very different than me. And what I will say is it's so funny because we'll be in like the TSA line, and especially, or I shouldn't say the international version of TSA line, like Border Patrol, when you're going through another country's border to come back to the US, right? And they'll ask me questions. We'll have like a wonderful 10-minute conversation. I'll get like a green sticker on the back of my passport and then the stamp, and I'm good to go. And then I don't know if it's just like the ambiance she puts off, what she puts off. They'll ask her like one question, if that, and she'll always get this red or orange sticker or yellow, it's been. And that is for additional security. And I kid you not, this has happened to her 3 times already. And it will literally will go through another portion of the airport where there's another security. They see the green sticker on mine and they're like, oh yeah, she's American. Go on right through. And then she will be pulled into a separate area where they literally make her take off her jacket, like a sweatshirt, a this, a that, and literally pat her down, go through every single one of her bags. I don't know if it's just the luck of the draw and she always gets the extra security, but every time it happens, we always sit down afterwards and laugh about it because it never fails to happen when we both travel.
Yeah, I got a story for that one too. I got two different things I want to talk about, but I want to hear from Donna first.
Well, I don't really have any stories like that. Like I've never been stopped from like not me anyway, getting like searched or anything like that. But I do remember our very first flight, which this was like 2008, maybe. I don't even know what year. I was young, but I was with my family and I mean, I don't even know if we had internet, so we really didn't know anything about TSA, like what they were looking for. But I remember we had tried to bring like full size like liquid items onto the flight. They threw every single one of our stuff, all of our stuff away. Like so, when we got to where we were going, we had to buy more. Like,
Yeah, I can actually I have a story for that. It's kind of a show and tell right now I'm about to do. So on my first flight, I was supposed to take this kind of contact solution. I'm like right here by my drawer. That's how I was able to grab it so fast. But it has like a red label on it because it's got like some kind of hydrogen peroxide in it. And I was thinking, okay, well, I could take this on my flight, and be fine. So stupid me. It was my first flight, so I didn't know any better. I put it in like my carry-on instead of my check bag. and they stopped me and they're like, "This is more than three ounces. This is 12 ounces here." And I was thinking like, no, like, but like I need this kind because I'm allergic to the other kinds. It seems like I need the kind that has the hydrogen peroxide in it. So all they gave me, this is like my little contact case. They said you can like use your little contact case and just fill this up, and that's all you get. Like that's all you can use. So I was thinking, no, because it's like, I'm going to Greece. I'm sure Greece doesn't have this kind. And so I get out there to Greece and they have the exact kind that I'm allergic to. So they didn't have the kind that I needed. So I bought, and I was thinking, well, I gotta buy something. So I ended up the whole week, I ended up using my whole, like all of my contacts, like I had like a year's worth of contacts because I bought like the year's worth. And I used it all, most of them up. And then I was thinking, well, I guess I have to use this contact solution and like the kind that I'm allergic to. And I ended up using it. And for like the whole month, because I used it for like the last few days. And the whole month after I came back, my eyes were red the whole time. And everybody probably thought I was stoned like the whole time. It's like, I promise you, I'm not. Like I promise you, like I'm good, like I'm clean over here. But everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, your eyes are so red." So that was like one mistake that I made that I said never again. Put this in the check bag. So or if I'm going to carry it, they do have a smaller version at Walmart, so I'm able to get that for smaller flights. But I did have another couple quick stories to mention right quick. So like with Tony's story, like as far as dealing with like somebody else that's like cause it a problem. It wasn't a weapon story, but to me, I get nervous when other people can't doesn't like listen to the TSA. They're constantly saying the same thing as like you're getting like your ID, whether it's your passport or whatever checked. And like they're saying the same thing as you go through security, take your shoes off and put it in the bin or don't put it in the bin. It just depends. And like I was with somebody that was not listening to the whole thing, and they said it like right in front of us, like the rules and protocols, and I was like, okay. So like I'm doing, all this stuff, and then he was doing the complete opposite, and the TSA was getting very irritated with him, and it was making me nervous because I was thinking, oh no, like I'm afraid because if he kind of starts talking back, then it's gonna be like you get back in the line, get in the very back of the line again, or do some kind of crazy stuff. You just never know nowadays. So I get nervous when other people don't listen to the TSA. Because as far as like the TSA with me, I think that was the main problem that I had was just with my contact solution. So there was that. And then like as far as DeAnna's story, as far as like being with somebody that seems like they always end up getting that red sticker on the back, it kind of happened for me, but not it didn't happen to me, it happened to somebody that I met in Greece. Like, I flew there solo, and it was kind of like an EF trip, but it wasn't. It was like another trip for like my school. So I was representing UAB and I flew out to Greece for this reason. And anyway, I flew out there and and then we were coming back and they ask you all those questions like DeAnna says. And they asked me how many people like are you with? I said one because I did fly solo, but the next girl behind me, that was flying the same flight back home, she was flying to Philly and same with me for our connecting flight. She said she changed her answer, and I think that's what made like she said one, but I was with a group of people, so they were like, "Huh?" Like, wait, you're with one, now you're with how many people? And she couldn't really keep a clear answer, so they were like, "Well, congratulations, you were here for more questioning over here. Here you go, the red sticker." And she was so irritated. But I was thinking, yeah, you have to be prepared for those moments as far as even leaving the country. That can make me nervous a little bit too, because it's like, let me back into my home.
I feel
So,
like you just have to go with confidence. That's the key. Like you could give that answer. One, but I met 20 new friends out there with this travel group. Like you just gotta explain to them what's going on. I was gonna say sell your story, but it really is your story. It's not like you're making it up. It really is what you're doing. And then usually they buy into like your happiness and they understand like what you're going through or what you're doing and what you're a part of. And that's how you get through safely and quickly and how you feel more secure, I guess, in those instances.
That actually reminds me of not really an inspection story, but whenever coming back into the country, I've learned to never ever declare food items I've bought in another country on my customs form because the um the TSA agents will be sure to go and make sure you have every single one of those food items. So I bought like a bunch of like Dutch and German chocolate, which was like really nice. And they go in there and they to make sure that it's real and valid, have to sample most of it. So that was like, okay, cool. I bought international chocolate treats for the TSA. Great. Um, and there's just nothing you can really do about that. They're just kind of jerks. But yeah, I know. I actually got stopped. I just remembered I got stopped in, I don't remember if it was Amsterdam or Berlin. I think it's because they thought that my name wasn't real or something like that, and like they thought I was really suspicious. Um, and so I was like, okay, yeah. And then like I had bought like a plushie from the Berlin Zoo. There was this polar bear there named Knut, and he was kind of like an internet sensation because he was this little polar bear cub that had become like really popular on, I guess, at the time that was before TikTok or Vine. So I guess it was just YouTube. Um, and so like the 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 guy doing the inspections in Germany, he's like, "Oh, Knut, I know him." And then he was like disarmed, and he was like, "Okay, yeah, you can go on. You're not some terrorist or something." But um, yeah, just don't.
Yeah, you just got to relate to them. That's all.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think coming off with the right attitude and the right energy, I think that's like a good first step as far as like making sure you get that green sticker. Like, all right, you're good to go. But yeah, so there's some crazy stories that could come out of going to the airport and getting through the airport and different kind of things like that. So I actually have one final question. It's a two-parter because, of course, we're talking about traveling. I want to talk about some of the places that all of us have been to, which some of us have mentioned a few things here and there. But my first parter, to the final question is, what are some of your favorite places that you've been to? If you could just name a few. And then the second part of the question is, what are some places that you want to go to that you've never been to? So I'll let any of y'all take the floor, and I'll go last, of course.
I can let someone else go first. I think I jump in usually pretty quick.
Donna, you want to take it away first?
Sure. That's fine. Okay. So you said places we've been and places we want to go. Let's see. I've been like out of the country. I've been to Edinburgh in Scotland, London in England, and then I've been to Barcelona and Madrid in Spain. And then I've also been to Mexico. I've been to Mexico City. That's where my family's from. So, well, they're from a little town like outside of Mexico City, but no one's ever heard of it. So that's okay. But anyway, so I just tell people it's Mexico City because that's basically what it is. Um, and then yeah, that's it for out of the country. But like in the country, I've been to like New York, Washington, D.C., the little states between here and Mexico. I've been there. And then the states like in between to travel to like New York and DC because we drove every time we went. Or I went with the school, so we rode a bus, and that was always interesting. But anyway, places I want to go. I have a lot of places I want to go. I think I definitely want to go to Ireland next and Paris, in Italy. Yeah, those are my top three. So, but I have a bunch. I think I have a whole map full of places that I want to go. That I haven't
Me
been.
too. Me too. I
Love
can
it.
relate.
Well, I'll go next. I've been to a lot of places, more out of country, more European, um, than I will say the US. US, I have been broadening my horizons more, especially with making more friends like abroad. A lot of them live in the US, especially with the tour company I use, EF, Education First is what it's called. So what's really helped me is meeting those people out there in different countries and then making lifelong friendships and then getting to visit them wherever they are in the US, which has been really incredible. So like for my birthday, I'm flying out to Colorado February 11th. So that should be a fun time meeting up with a lot of my I shouldn't say old travel friends. They're from my last trip that I just took to Italy, Germany, and Switzerland. Um, so in terms of out of country, I'm not going to go over all the countries. If you want to check out my Instagram, feel free to give me a follow.
Shameless
Always
plug.
posting where I'm, yes, shameless plug. Always posting where I'm going there, and I'll be candid with like where I like the most, or I should say the different adventures I have, because I don't have favorites. Like they're all different cultures and different places and different things that interest me. But I think my like the thing I look for when I travel is the thing that takes my breath away. That's like, wow, like this is what made me want to travel. This is what I wanted to see. Like the photo does this no justice, or even if it did do it justice, like I cannot believe I'm seeing this in person. So like one of my first moments I had that was the Eiffel Tower in Paris, like seeing that in person. And I knew it lit up at night. I had no idea it shimmered. So I'm like on top of the Arc de Triomphe, looking out over this gorgeous city, and then all of a sudden the Eiffel Tower starts shimmering in front of me. Most like it was the most incredible feeling, and it just like gives you this feeling of like if I died tomorrow I could die happily. Like I just saw something so beautiful, so incredible. Another moment I had that was in Egypt with the pyramids. Like when I saw those in person, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I didn't even know you can enter the pyramids. So that was another adventure in itself. I felt like Indiana Jones living my whole life, climbing up pyramids, ascending pyramids, climbing down pyramids, and exploring everything there was to offer. Amazing trip. And then my most recent trip, Switzerland, we went up to the top of the Swiss Alps. We literally took a train that was going so steep up that I was like, ooh, this is risky. Like if the electric goes out right now, because they do have like some power things going on in terms of it, like depending on the year and or I shouldn't say the year, depending on the season and the weather, we could go really rolling back down fast. But we made it to the top. It was beautiful. It was incredible. The fog had just dropped all the way down, and the amazingness and the sight of it was just stunning. Like it was a part where I was like it's it makes the traveling and it makes the trip so much worth it. And then the people you meet along the ways is just incredible. The amount of people that I have like that I can connect through social media and still keep up with is amazing. And I guess that's ultimately why I love traveling.
Hmm. Yeah, so those are definitely amazing reasons to, amazing places that you've been to as well that I hope to
Yeah,
go to one day.
That's
definitely. And then places I look forward to going. I actually have a couple trips booked coming up, but I'm most looking forward to Israel and Jordan. So that should definitely be an adventure this summer.
Oh, I can't wait to see all those photos and videos.
Yes.
wow. That's a very like inspired answer. The whole like thing in like Paris, like wow, that's really incredible. Yeah, let's see. I guess so. Places that I've been. So we lived for one summer when my dad was doing mountain training before he got deployed to Afghanistan. We lived in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I loved that place. I don't know how it is now. I think I've heard a lot of stuff in Colorado has changed since certain legislation went into pass regarding certain consumable plants. But I I really liked it when I was there because like there's just so much culture, um, like with like a lot of Native American culture, and like there's always something to do. Like then and I've gotten more into hiking recently, and there's like a lot of really cool trails out there, and there's a lot of just there. It just felt like there was never a reason to be bored there. There was always something to explore or to find. Everything was an adventure. There was a trail or a cave or something to explore, or just the nature of the land, everything was just lending itself to that. So I would like to go back there at some point. We actually did stay later another time, like during it's some really fancy bed and breakfast place, and it was just really cool and relaxing. Um, so that's one place I would like to go back to someday. Maybe not necessarily Colorado Springs, but just Colorado in general. It's really cool up there. Um, one of the places which absolutely kind of was just shocking to me um, was we took an impromptu trip because my partner was a trucker before, and so he got like this random assignment where he could go out to like Savannah, Georgia to do like one assignment out there. And then like it was just like a basically all expenses trip paid to Savannah for the weekend. So we went out there with some friends of ours and it was just it's I don't know how to describe it. Like the whole town was very like everyone there was very outspoken and unique and it had a very disarming um kind of air to it. Like you could feel like you could really be yourself there. There was a lot of expression. There was like and like we went there and it was so unorthodox for vacation because of course we were planning to go to the beach and stuff eventually. But I mean like we went to like a record store and met some people who were just really personable and they went from recommending like hey, do you have the album for this band I'm obsessing over to hey, we're having a block party in a few hours. You want to come over and, maybe grab a drink or something? And I was just like, whoa, cool, sure. Um, Similarly, I went to Jacksonville, Florida one time for a concert and like we sat next to some people and they were like, hey, we're having a party. You want to come over tomorrow? And it was just like, sure, I don't know who you are, but why not? Um, but yeah, Savannah is really cool. I'd like to explore there more. There's a lot of history, and we went to this really cool museum that was actually connected to that record store. It's called the Grave Face Museum. They talk about a lot of like creepy stuff in history, like your cult leaders, serial killers, the Church of Satan, etc. And it's just like you can go there and see all this just really creepy stuff. They had a bunch of like specifically antique pinball machines there too. Like that was like just this like weird niche. And it's just cool to like see that and see the people that keep up these kinds of things. So that's definitely two places I want to go back to in the States that I really enjoyed. Of course, I take, at least every year. I mean, being in Birmingham is really nice because we're kind of central to a lot of different things. If you want to go anywhere in Tennessee, you want to go up to Nashville, you want to go up to um, Gatlinburg. I went to Dollywood for the first time last year. It was great. Definitely want to go back there. Of course, there's Atlanta. Um, there's a lot to do there. And I go to see my family in Dallas fairly often. I think next Christmas I might be going to see my brother. He lives all the way out in California, like right near San Fran. So that'll be something else I've never been to. As far as out of the country, the only three places I've been were, like I mentioned before, there's Cozumel. Like I think that was the only place we went to in Mexico. Like it was like the little dip on the cruise. The Bahamas, which actually I don't really want to go back to. People talk a lot of like they really talk up the Bahamas, but they don't have an open containment law there. So there's a lot of drunk drivers. It's kind of scary. And then on top of that, they have these markets there that they are always trying to swindle tourists and like sell you overpriced stuff because, oh, I'm a tourist. I should spend more money whenever it you, you don't. You don't need to. And that's really a big concern for me is money because I was thinking because she had mentioned Egypt. I was thinking about going to Egypt as well, but I was a little bit concerned because I was looking up stuff about it and like there was some sort of advisory like Americans don't travel here right now. There's like terrorists or something. I was like, eh. But I did hear Egypt was really cheap. And then of course the only other place other than the Bahamas and Mexico was stopover in Amsterdam and stayed for a week in Berlin. And well, not just Berlin. It was Berlin. We took a bus to Potsdam. We went to one of the old concentration camps at Sachsenhausen. Um, and just it was just kind of an all around cool trip. I would like to go back to Germany someday. I don't know if I necessarily want to stick with Berlin because Berlin is a really interesting city because the people who grew up there in the last, two generations or so, I mean, there's not a lot of native German pride in the city of Berlin for obvious reasons. So the majority of the populace there and the people who are really excited and happy to be there are people from other countries who immigrated there. There are people like you can go out into a square in Berlin and hear 10 different languages and none of them are German. There were a lot of other tour groups, there were a lot of people living there. Our our tour guide of Berlin was from Spain, and our we had a second tour guide for I think it was for when we were going to Potsdam. She was from Wales. Our bus driver was from Romania. Like it just, you know, the German people are not typically that proud of Berlin. At least they weren't, when I went like 10 years ago. But I would like to see some of the prettier German countryside, in southern Germany as well. But one place I really, really, really want to go to for sure that I haven't been to before that is out of the country, I want to go to Japan. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just weird because I end up getting all these weird videos on YouTube that are recommended just people doing things in Japan. Like no words, no music. It's just like I'm going down a Japanese street and look at how different it is. And there's all these different things that they have. Like they have like so many different like special vending machines there. And they have all these like niche cafes and stuff like that. And then, you have like Akihabara where you have all the technology and stuff that I would probably be interested in, for like gaming and shows that I've seen. And that's just Tokyo. There's also Osaka, which is like the one place in Japan apparently that's like super excited about tourists and foreigners. And so I'd be interested in seeing that or experiencing some of those things that are just it's a completely different world over there. So I do want to go to Japan. I'd like to go back to Germany, and I'm thinking of anything else like right off the bat. Like no other countries really stick out to me per se, but there's still a lot of places that I want to go within our own country. I mean, like I was saying before, like I don't really think that. I mean, there's still a lot of places I can drive to. I'll say that. But yeah, I think that's about it.
I'm gonna I'm gonna jump right in, Joel, and make a recommendation for Germany. I absolutely loved Cologne. And I don't know, in Berlin, were you able to do the graffiti tour or a graffiti tour? Because the amount of graffiti that's in Berlin is incredible and it's actual art. And the
Yeah,
amount that they go into like the history and the different artists that come up in graffiti, it was incredible. Like that was the thing that made my one of my Germany trips, I will
I
say.
I remember. So again, this trip was like over 10 years ago, but like I did take a lot of pictures. I So it was really interesting. It was kind of like a high-paced trip because we were learning three different transportation systems at the time. Because you have the Straßenbahn, the streetcar, which is in former, I believe, East Germany, and then you have buses in former West Germany because they didn't want to be like each other, and they just kept those same infrastructures. But then you also have the U-Bahn, which is, your subway. Um, and it's like this whole interlocked connected thing because we didn't like the only time we took a tour bus was when we went over to Potsdam, which we actually had to get on the highway to go to. So we were like navigating around and like walking everywhere and trying to catch all these different places that we were going to. And it was confusing, but it was high paced and fun. Um, but like I did see a lot of the graffiti. Like we went over there by that. I guess it's kind of the like over there by the wall where they have the I think it's called like the paternal kiss or whatever. It was like that one painting that was drawn talking about like a union. It was some historical union. There was like two politicians on it, but anyway. And there was like of course a little gift shops like, oh, here's a little part of the Berlin Wall you could take home with you in a postcard, you know. We saw a lot of the graffiti and they were talking about how it's encouraged there. And we also got to see the Holocaust monument, like they're like right next to that. It's like this. If you guys don't know, it's like a modern art installation kind of thing. Because like you go in like this weird like slated area. It's like the ground itself feels like it's like a bowl, and there's like all these like pillars. And so like you go in there and you go into the center part of it, and it blocks out all the sound from the street around you. It's really surreal. But yeah, there was a lot of cool stuff like that. And then just going around, the city of Berlin in general, you got to get some currywurst and stuff like that. It's just
Oh
uh,
yeah.
or crepes. That's good stuff. And if you just absolutely cannot satiate your desire for those foods, I highly recommend. In the meantime, I mean, it ended just a month ago, but they have a German Christmas market in Atlanta if you guys ever want to go to that. That usually starts up in November and goes through until Christmas Eve. But you can get German street food there, just as a little, random thing there. But yeah, we saw a lot of the
Wow.
graffiti. Um, we saw a lot of the graffiti. We saw a lot of stuff. We also went to, well, I mean, back in Potsdam, Potsdam, we got to see a lot of the old architecture because that was like one of the few places that hadn't been bombed basically in the war. So it was like you get to see a lot of this old High German architecture. It was really cool. And then like we went to the place where they like discussed like the final solution and stuff like that, and then the actual concentration camp, which was actually really kind of it was uh it was like a heaviness in the air, I guess, going to a place like that and like just to like be there and feel it. And that was like the coldest, bitterest day of our trip. And I did not dress appropriately. And I was like, oh my gosh, like people were standing out here like in PJs, basically, and you know, died. Um, but I mean, like I think that there is some importance in looking at, some of these historical sites where horrible things happened and just remembering like, you know, let's not do that again.
So important. And it's important that you bring that up too, because I know a lot of people who go on trips and they're like, well, that's going to bring down my spirits, or that's not going to make me happy, or this, that, or the other thing. But like, that is an important piece of history, and we have to remember that history in order to prevent it for the future. So when I was in Munich, we did Dachau, and it was very similar to your experience, but it was one of the most important things I had to do being in that area.
Yeah, definitely
Mhm.
recommend it. I mean, not like as a, oh yeah, let's go vacation to concentration camps, but definitely recommend it just for, just to see it and experience it. I can't really get that from a textbook. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I am kind of curious about traveling to Egypt. Did you guys have any concerns about security there or anything like that?
So it's funny you mentioned that. Every single person was trying to convince me not to go to Egypt. Every single person in my family, all of my friends, they were like, don't do it. You shouldn't go. It's unsafe. The US doesn't recommend it. And plus, I'm a female, and there is also a stigmatism and difference in how they treat females there. But my thing about it is whenever you're going to an international country where you don't know it's like Europe, where you know that it's a different type of culture and world out there. As long as you have trust in the tour company you're booking with, and you see reviews and you see that they're not pulling out of that country, then I'm pretty okay with, like, obviously depending on reviews and different things and different circumstances going on, I'm pretty okay with booking it because I have a lot of trust and faith in that company that I'm booking it with. So we traveled there, um, met up with a group of people, wonderful group of people, and we actually had an armed guard with us the entire time. So it was definitely a different culture entirely, because a lot of Americans don't travel to these places. Like, you got to see so many unique temples, pyramids, culture, history, but like you would be lining up to take a picture of this monument or to take a photo here, there, or the other thing. And then you would have little like Egyptian school kids lining up to take a photo with you. The amount of photos that kids asked to take with me because I had blonde hair and I didn't look like them and I was American was crazy. And the like, you do have to have a thick skin per se, because you will get like catcalled, especially as a girl, or like you will get offers or propositions like for marriage or hand in marriage, this, that, and the other thing. But as long as you have like security in terms of your tour guide being a local and a native there, knowing like the history, like how they're supposed to treat you, and also having that form of protection, I felt completely safe the entire time. Like, there was no point where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so concerned or I'm so worried. But I will say, we stayed with the tour group. Like, the tours were planned out where they didn't give you any free time, or the free time they gave you options of excursions to book, and you always felt safe and protected. In terms of negotiating, my job in insurance was actually like bodily injury negotiator. So I would literally settle bodily injury cases, like somebody's hurt from an accident and I'm settling it with them or their attorney that they're presenting. So like the negotiation form, I absolutely love. I wish we had that here in America because I can negotiate like a pair of pants, an outfit, a this, a that. Like the entire trip, I was getting pulled by people asking me to negotiate on their behalf because I'm not afraid to, because I had that background. But the key to your negotiation is you need to know the bottom line price for something, right? So like what would they sell a pair of pants for to a native Egyptian? You need to know that so that way it is realistically a good deal for both parties and you know like your walking limit. And there's a ton of stores, like their markets are like they're going to have duplicative items. So you're able to go on and make a deal with another person, which is awesome.
Ooh. Yeah, and what booking company was that you were talking about?
So that was through EF again. I travel with them a lot.
Hmm.
And so they have EF Ultimate Break, which I believe is you can book with them up to your 35. You can do like individual, you can book a double room if you want to go with you and a friend, you and a partner. You can book higher end tours if you want to stay in higher, more luxury places, like that's their premium trips. You can book more on the savings cost efficient side if you don't mind bunk beds, but you're consistently always rooming with somebody who's on the tour and you always have a guide there to be able to assist you, which is really nice. And it really makes traveling and not knowing anybody, like it takes the scariness out of it. I mean, obviously it's still scary because a lot of times you're going somewhere new and you know no one at all. And you're like, I hope I make friends. If I don't, it'll be an interesting tour still. And then you come back and you're like, wow, I just met the most incredible 18 or 20 people. And like you get to do things like this where you get to catch up with people and see how their lives are going and then see their travels as well. I'm like, oh my gosh, that trip to Ireland looked incredible. I got to book my trip to Ireland. And then that's how I met Joel. Like, it's just a wonderful experience. I can't recommend them enough. If you age out too of that bucket, they have like what's called EF Go Ahead. And that you do have to book with like another partner or a friend. Like you have to book it in double rooms just because they don't stay in any hostels whatsoever. But still, wonderful tour company. I can't hype them up enough.
Interesting. EF education first. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Correct.
I will look into that. I mean, I don't know if I want to do that or another cruise first. It's like I still haven't really. I don't know.
Something to think about. They have a lot of adventures in different places. And what I will say is they will pull out of countries. Like if it's not safe, they'll pull out of it. So for instance, a big tour that I was looking at was the China and Japan tour, and it was like doing both countries, and they no longer offer it because they're looking to see particularly where is safest. So like they have you in mind, and even if you book it and it's not the safest, they're not afraid to reschedule it to prioritize your safety. So the whole company was built around educating people. So that's why it's called Educating First, and the amount of education you can get through traveling.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Yeah, I guess that's a question that I would have for you guys. I mean, because, obviously the one time that the times that I traveled out of country, I mean, it was, either on my parents' dime when I was a kid or on school kind of like budgeted something that I was going with a group rate kind of thing. But I mean, like, how do you guys like handle the financial aspect of traveling, relatively frequently or just whenever you do? Like, do you guys have a budget? Do you guys have like some discount plan or some mailing list you get on? Or you guys, something?
Well,
You
I
want
can.
me to go first, Joel, or you?
Yeah, you are a little bit, probably a little more experienced. I'm gonna let you go. Then I'll say kind of my experience because I've only gone on one EF trip.
Okay, no worries. So with EF, because I know them and I've taken them a lot, I'm on like their email distribution. So like and I could give this advice to anybody out there. Like if you're new, they'll give you a discount in terms of it. If you know people who have taken EF tours as well, like you can use their referral code and they'll give you a discount, which is amazing as well. But they have a lot of holiday specials. So what I'll do is I will look at the price around of what the trip I want to take is. So for instance, Jordan and Israel, like the average price consistently was like $4,500, and it was a couple weeks out there. So then I look at it and then I constantly am checking back on like when they have their different specials. So like if they have a holiday special, I'm doing the holidays. If they have a Fourth of July sale, at this sale, I'm like logging on and I'm keeping an eye on those trips to see where the prices fall. And then I look at the dates and I see why the prices are falling, right? So like for instance, Japan, like they have in a lot higher price dates and tours during their cherry blossom festival because everybody wants to see their cherry blossoms blooming. Well, is that something I want to miss if I book 2 weeks later for $1,000 less, or is it worth it? Like, am I going to be stunned by those trees in order to be able to pay more in terms of it? Then after I see a deal where I'm like, that's a steal, what I then do is they have options of you can either book your flight with them and they take care of all the details, the flights, the hotels, the everything, or you can book it without. So then I price it with the flight included, and then I price it without the flight included. And then I look physically for flights and I see what the flight is. So for instance, Ireland, I think we saved $200 in Ireland by booking our own flight from like the cost of booking the trip. And we had a direct flight guaranteed. That's like the key whenever you book with any travel companies because they will send you on multiple, not multiple, but a lot of times you at least have one connecting flight. Sometimes you'll even have two connecting flights. And that could be the most tiring thing. So if it's a country I know I'm safe in, like Europe, I'm very comfortable in Europe because I've been there a lot. I don't mind booking my flights separately. But if it was like Egypt, I was like, no, they're going to handle all the booking. I'm going to meet the guy there at the airport. It's going to be fine. So take it with a grain of salt, do some research. Don't be afraid to reach out to me if you're looking at certain trips and like what prices I've seen it for, because I've probably definitely checked out that trip or been on that trip, and I'll give you like a realistic cost of what I would spend on average for it. Some of your meals are included, a lot of them aren't, unless you book like the premium tours, then a lot of them are. Or if you're going to like a less safer country like Egypt, they only offer premium tours because you're going to stay together in most of your groups and for most of your meals.
Yeah, I mean, I can add you on I guess Facebook. I don't know. Yeah. So like, I can bug you about that later.
Definitely, of course.
Yeah, one thing I was going to mention about EF that I learned from my first experience is I do need to probably do my research as far as like getting my own flight because like DeAnna said, something that happened to me is that, I was thinking, oh, okay, cool. Like you just pay this price and, they have like payment plans that you could pay. Like if it's like, you could pay, it depends on how far ahead of the trip you are. Like if you were way ahead, like if you planned a trip for next year, they could be like, well, each month you can just pay like 120 something a month, and then by the time it's time the money's due, like you would have paid it all off, and like it pays for your flight and all the hotel accommodations and like she was saying most meals. But the only thing that I would probably do more research on for me, like for my next EF experience, if I get to have another one, is looking at my own flights because I did have it where they did the flights for me. And yeah, before like getting to Ireland, it took me like three different flights to get to Ireland. When I've seen like I was looking like after I like was looking like why am I going to Houston when like Ireland's the other way? Like I had to fly from Birmingham to Houston, then from Houston to I was supposed to fly to DC at that point, but there was bad weather, so I had to fly to Chicago instead, and then from Chicago to Dublin. So that was very tiring for me. But coming back, I only had one connection, but I think that's something that I learned to, maybe look more into because when I was looking at different flights after I saw my flight list, I was thinking there's got to be like, a quicker way to get there than going to Houston, which is the opposite way of Ireland, and then going to, back to the east, or Midwest in my case. So because when I was looking, I saw they did have a flight from like Atlanta, which is right next door to us, basically. My mic is falling, but Atlanta for us is from Birmingham to Atlanta. It's probably like 30-40 minute flight. And I was thinking I could have just easily gotten on a flight to there and then fly from Atlanta all the way over to Dublin. But that's just a lesson learned out of my experience with that. But
Anytime there's a leg of a trip that goes like from Atlanta to Birmingham or the other way, I'm just like, I could have just driven this.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
And
exactly.
one thing I'll add on to that too is like the option to pay in advance is nice. Like they can pull it right out of your account. But another option, if you're savvy with credit cards, and I won't go into this because it will take up a lot of time, but like credit card hacking, incredible. If you have a good credit score and you can get approved for some of these travel cards, like the amount of points I get is, I don't want to say it's ridiculous, but it's amazing. Like I could pay a small fee of like $100 for usage for a year, and then I'm racking up points where I could travel across the US for free practically. Like my Colorado flight completely covered for a good amount of points just from having a travel credit card. So like I put a lot of my EF trips right on the credit card. The credit card has 6 months for me to pay it off interest free, make my payments completely free there. And then I have my Go Free card to be able to travel in the US. And I'm sure even when I look to expand into international flights, it'll shimmy over nicely as well, as what I'll say.
Yeah, so there's a lot of a lot of good things that come out of that company. I know they don't sponsor this podcast, but they should because three of us, Donna's even been on an EF trip as well, a couple of them. So just knowing
Mhm.
that it seems like it's highly recommended for many people, especially around our ages. I think it's amazing because like I do get nervous about traveling alone and like going out of the country because maybe I don't have family. Not all of my family can maybe afford, going out of the country like I can because, I still live with my parents. But like some of my siblings, of course, are married, have children, or some of them just live out on their own. And, of course, there's that expense to that. So, I think one advantage for me is that, I still live with my parents. So that's why I'm able to like budget, in a proper way to where I can be able to do these kind of trips. And yeah, I definitely would recommend EF Ultimate for sure. So I guess first I want to thank all of y'all for sharing your experiences with this because I think it's just awesome hearing about other people's stories, like with Egypt and even with, Germany with the concentration camps, because even though those can be hard to see, it's a part of history and going to those places makes you want to just, learn a lesson out of it, like as far as people as a whole to like let's not rewrite history, like, or let's not rewrite history. Let's not repeat history is what I mean. Let's not do something like this again because it's so tragic and it's so devastating to see those kind of things. But, it's a part of our history and it is, I'm sure it's like a crazy, experience. I've never been to one yet, but, just being there in person, just seeing all of that, I know that would have to be, crazy. But before I do give my quick answers, I know Tony mentioned in like Osaka, like in Japan, how people are like very friendly, welcoming to foreigners. And I kind of have a quick story that I want to mention right quick. So while we were in Ireland, DeAnna may remember this, but our last stop was in Galway, before we went home. And they were like, oh, like the people in Galway, this is like the friendliest city, like in Ireland. Like everybody's so friendly. And we had a guy that we were doing a walking tour with. Like our tour director knew this guy that was giving us a tour of the city. And like throughout the whole time, the people of Galway, no, I guess they realized we're Americans. Most of us, we had one Canadian on our trip, but most of us were Americans as a whole. And the whole time they were like, F you Americans, like go home, go back where you came from and they were like hackling us and like they could just tell we're all like Americans and they're just the whole time somebody would come up like a normal like a someone that lives in the city they'll just come up and they'll like start saying something and then the guy's like go away basically like I'm trying to like do this tour and some of them will just stand around there and like listen to what he's saying. They're like, "Oh, really?" Like they'll just throw in a comment here and there. So I don't know why I just thought about that story when because I was thinking it was such an ironic thing. They were like, Galway has like some of the friendliest people in Ireland, or something like that. It's like the safest and friendliest place, and then we get there and they're like throwing F-bombs at us, and they're like, Americans, like go home, or something like that. We're like, oh, we feel very loved here.
Well, what
Thank you
I
very
have
much.
to throw in, yeah, what I have to throw into that too was that it was like, I don't know, was it graduating weekend or it was something for like the teenagers. So there were a lot of groups of teenagers like partying, clubbing all around. And it was like a lot of them had celebrations and were running out clubs. And I forget specifically what our tour guide said about it. But like when you have young teenagers in groups, they feel more confident in terms of that. And then you see a group of 20 people who are getting in your way and like you're frustrated about that. So I don't think we got a holistic point of view of the city. I'm not saying nobody go to Galway because it was still a fun time and it was an adventure. Uh, but just take it with a grain of salt. The experience we had was during the time and like um the area of like different tenure and different people we got to meet. I think it would have been a different vibe if those teenagers were at home with their families versus on the street partying intoxicated.
Yeah, most definitely. I do remember that now that you mentioned that there was a whole bunch of people dressed up. It was like some kind of prom or some kind of something that like we have here, like a prom or not really prom because a lot of them were wearing like short dresses. So it almost makes me think of like a homecoming or I don't know, Sadie Hawkins kind of thing like going on. So and that's kind of what I think of, like, people that were just there for an event to, party it up. And then here comes some Americans getting in the way. And they're like, oh, there goes those stupid Americans walking by, getting in our way, and we're just trying to enjoy our time here in Galway. But I guess, as far as like my out of country experiences, Ireland obviously was one. Of course, that was my probably my favorite experience going to different parts. We went to Dublin, Killarney, Kilkenny, and Galway, and a lot of places in between, some different castles and the Cliffs of Moher, which is somewhere back here, and enjoyed my time there. So there's that. And then of course Greece, I mentioned earlier. I went to Athens, and I also went to the city of Corinth, which, was really cool just because, I guess for me, like, as a Christian, I thought it was cool just because, the Bible talks about the city of Corinth. So that was cool. And then, and then our main place we stayed at was in a city called Epidavros, was really cool. Stayed there and had a view of this volcano that hadn't erupted in a long time, but I was like the whole time wondering, like, please don't erupt while we're here. Like it's been whatever, however many years, like hundreds of years. Like, just don't erupt. Just sleep over there while we enjoy our time here in Greece. So, Epidavros was our main thing, but then we went to a few islands. There was a city called Nafplio that we went to that was really cool. We went to an island called Hydra that was really cool, very blue water. That's something that I loved about Greece was the really blue water. So there's that as far as Greece, and then I did a Canadian road trip. Like I flew to Montreal, and there was this church that I wanted to see in Montreal that was very beautiful. I think it's called the Notre Dame, but it's not, of course, the one in Paris. It's like a smaller version of it and very beautiful inside. So went to Montreal, and then me and my brother, we drove to Toronto, which was like maybe a 6-hour drive from Montreal to Toronto because there was a castle there in Toronto that I wanted to see called Castle Loma. That was very beautiful. And then our last stop was in Niagara Falls, which of course is always a beautiful place to see. And, saw like, a rainbow and like, there at the waterfalls. It was just an amazing, breathtaking view. Then we drove back into Buffalo, New York and flew home from there. So we didn't have to worry about the whole airport border control, except for just having to get across that bridge there at Niagara Falls that connects to New York. So there's that. And then I went to Mexico. I went to Cancun for my birthday one year, but I do want to redo that trip, like to redo Mexico, because the experience that I had there was not as fun just because I had like a lot of people following us the whole time, a lot of people asking us, kind of trying to, get money from us and like trying to take us to like their business, and we're like, no thanks. Like I'm just looking for a t-shirt, like a little souvenir kind of thing, and they just keep on like following you. And so I guess I feel like a lot of the time I was like kind of being I don't want to say like harassed in a way. Like I just feel like I was just constantly being bothered and followed by people. So I would kind of, if I went to Mexico, I would probably want to do more of like an inclusive resort kind of thing where like everything's kind of there in the same area. So, I think that would be like the key for me as far as, going to Mexico again because it was very beautiful there from what I did see, like the blue water and, the white sandy beaches and there were some really friendly people there, but there was just those few that, were following us and all. But if I had to name a few in-country experiences that I had, right quick, I just want to let me think of a few. Okay, so a couple years ago, I went on a road trip to Mount Rushmore, but the crazy thing of it all was that Mount Rushmore wasn't probably the best part of the trip. I mean, like it was very cool seeing it in person, but I think the coolest part was, DeAnna's going to be going there, and Tony's talked about it in a past experience was Colorado. Colorado Springs was very beautiful from when I went there, and also Denver was really cool. And I would love to go back to like, different parts of Colorado, like Vail or Aspen would be really cool to see. So yeah, Colorado is definitely one of the most beautiful places. And then going to New York City, I went there a couple months ago, and I actually got to reunite with DeAnna because she lives up in New Jersey. So I got to see her for a little bit, and that was really fun. I want to go to New York City again to during Christmas time. So I may be doing that this year, actually, going during the Christmas time to see all the holiday lights and the big Rockefeller tree and all that. So there's that. And then if I had to name a couple more places that I liked, Chicago actually impressed me in a way because you usually hear bad things about Chicago on the news. I feel like with like crime and whatever. But when I went there, I felt very like where I was staying. I was staying in downtown area, but I felt very safe to me. Like I felt like I could walk around with my friend and we got to do some fun things there. So I would love to go back to Chicago again. And then just some, local places like Tony was mentioning, there's some places here that you can drive to easily in the Birmingham area, like Nashville. I feel like it's basically my second home. I'm always up there, whether it's for a hockey game or something like that. So, I definitely recommend Nashville if you haven't been there yet, viewers or any of my guests. So, Nashville's a really good one. And then even if you want to go to the beach, it's a 4 or 5 hour drive, for me to like Panama City Beach, or even if you want to go to an Alabama beach, like Gulf Shores or Orange Beach, those are nice. But I preferably go to Panama City Beach, which is where I was last week, and I miss it already because this work week this week was crazy. Makes me want to go back to the beach. But so those are also some nice places. As far as places that I've never been to that I want to go to, I know Deanna's going in a few months, but I want to go to Israel so bad just for, you know, big reasons. Of course, like with my faith, I would love to see, the places like biblical history, seeing those areas in Israel and even Jordan as well, because I want to see Petra. That would be amazing to see in person, walking up to that, and you're like, whoa, like it's just so beautiful. And then Egypt is another one that I had in mind too, but I kind of had the same kind of concerns as far as safety. So I'm glad that this it was brought up because it makes me feel more secure if I wanted to go like with the EF trip, knowing that there is security there. So definitely Egypt. And then if I had to name just a very few in Europe, I definitely want to go to Italy, everywhere in Italy. There's so many cities in Italy I want to go to. And then never been to London or Paris. That was originally the plan I was going to go to for my EF trip originally. Booked it 4 days before COVID hit, and they canceled it because of COVID, of course. And then they kept postponing it. And then by the time I was supposed to go in like May of last year, they canceled it because not enough people signed up for it, surprisingly. So I was thinking, well, let me try to find another trip. And that's what led me to Ireland. So I would love to go to London and Paris, most definitely. So almost anywhere in Europe, really. Like I would want to go to most countries. I mean, I know even with Russia, I know there's a lot going on there. Right now, I definitely don't want to go there, but like I would love to see Moscow, at some point in the future, even if it's, however many years down the road. But like just something about Moscow looks really cool, even though right now it's probably not the best time to go. But anywhere in Europe, I think would be really amazing to see, or Australia. So there's that for me. So Anyways, I know this was a very good topic, and I'm so glad that all of us were on here because everybody got to share their experiences, and it was a really fun conversation. So thank you all for being on here.
Thanks again for having us, Joel.
Thank you,
Yes, thank you.
Joel.
It was fun.
Yes, absolutely. And I thank you, viewers, for watching as well. Or if you're listening to this on any of the podcast streaming platforms, I definitely appreciate your support there. And I look forward to sharing more of, my life and all of my other guests' life, with y'all as far as, different topics. And I look forward to seeing y'all on the next episode of Not Your Average Joel. Talk to y'all later.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everybody that took the time to listen to this episode of Not Your Average Joel. My podcast is available not only on YouTube, but also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast from. I also have an Instagram page where you can see outstanding moments, behind the scenes, and even a funny moment or two from each episode at Not Your Average Joel Podcast. If you want to get in contact with me, then my Instagram page is probably the best way to do so through direct messaging. I appreciate any kind of support that you have given to this channel, whether you are a guest or a listener to this podcast. Once again, I thank y'all so much, and I look forward to sharing more of my life with y'all on the next episode of Not Your Average Joel. Goodbye.